Okay, let's jump into it. Got firstly just having a quick look at DXY because this absolutely sort of ripped on US CPI figures last night, which was a little bit surprising, a little bit not so much. I mean, a couple of things. Look, it was expected to come in at 3.6%. Previous was 3.7, and it came in at 3.7. So, I mean, there's no sort of obviously movement from the previous print. And I guess you could say that maybe the market was sort of pricing for a 3.6, but then came in 3.7. But still, I don't think that sort of screams, okay, yes, they're going to have to do something and sort of hike the rates. And, that kind of reaction doesn't seem like it could have been so much of the case. I think it's more the sort of case that you got to look at these things. The last 2 weeks straight, DXY US dollar has had a bunch of data out which has been seemingly positive for or conducive with sort of US dollar strength. And every time it's gone up, it's been bang smashed into, and it's been bang smashed into. NFP was a great example of it all, but there was a number of these sort of things happening. I think more is the case that sort of you seeing the market expecting this thing to yet happen again. So where's the pain trade? Where can they sort of snap more people? Can they inflict more damage? And that's by sort of like now this time pushing it up and then sort of not having a pullback. I mean, if you go down into the lower time frames, you can see for a split second here. Uh, this was actually sort of coming back down. Like this was the initial reaction. It was starting to come back down, and probably a lot of people, obviously, into this sort of little zone as well. A lot of people are probably thinking, "Yep, cool. This is the thing. It's just going to happen yet again. We're going to see this big sort of wick up, and it's going to come back down." But of course, you know what? While people sort of jump on with their new positions, they just decide to sort of scream it up a little bit higher. So look, it finished quite strong. Like came right up into the close, held the gains there. And one thing I did notice as well, we're kissing onto this 61% of this drop down here. So one thing with DXY, it loves deep pullbacks. Like, it's not sort of like, okay, I mean, obviously we can see with this move up, there were very shallow pullbacks the whole way. But typically, it can do some very deep pullbacks in the individual moves. I mean, this is just having a quick glance at this last one here. But you're seeing this, this is just one of yet many sort of examples. But this pullback here from this push here, okay, people are probably thinking, no, he's done, he's come down, he's past the 61, almost to the 78, and then bang, kicks up for another sort of push higher and that. There's a lot of examples of this with the DXY, like, sort of certainly going back prior to this last large move that we saw over the last couple of months. Endless times that you sort of see, and you like, particularly when it's trying to sort of change trends, it can sort of like around the sort of bottom of these larger time frame moves, you can see these really deep sort of pullbacks and that. But if we sort of drag it up over this from this drop down here, we see that sort of like, it's coming up around this sort of 61. It's funny actually because I was looking at this on a different platform, and of course it can always sort of throw you off a little bit with this stuff because I mean, it was literally coming up and kissing the 61 on this other platform. But regardless, I mean, we're within a couple of points of the 61 up here. Look, this was obviously a little bit of a zone where we've seen the sellers have been around this area previously as marked out. And, you know what I mean? Once again, they're coming into play here. So, I mean, if we sort of say, okay, yep, this is where the sellers have wanted to be previously, well, here they are again, and they're still pushing it down. So, look, you got to be pretty ballsy sometimes to sort of stand in front of something that just comes charging up like this. But, you got to look at previous price action. The market has chosen to sell it around these areas. You got to remember that sort of like, although they did sort of hold it up into the close as well, the last 2 weeks they have been selling US dollar relentlessly. Look, it's only come back, as I said on yesterday's video, this level down here is actually sort of right on the 23. So, I mean, this is still a relatively low pullback in regards to this large move that we've seen up. So, sort of like US dollar certainly isn't dead yet, but this continued sell down, this is the longest sell down we've seen. It gave us the first weekly bearish candle that we'd seen sort of in this whole run up in 13 weeks or so. And this sort of pushback up here, it came very hard and sharp. So, I mean, look, take out the highs. Okay, boom, we've got another story, and we've got to sort of talk about these higher levels and retests and these kind of things. But again, in yesterday's video, I was sort of saying that we were expecting a little bit of a push up at some stage, certainly, because the thing is, things don't die in one go. They don't come down like this. You need this drive up here. I honestly didn't think it would come this hard and this fast, but and I think a lot of the market didn't think that as well. And sort of anybody sort of dollar short, I think got snapped out a little bit. Like I'll have a look at Aussie in a second, but I think that was like 120 points or something from yesterday's highs. So yeah, that really copped the brunt of it. But certainly, this is what we were sort of saying yesterday, that you need this second push up here, because till you have this second push up here, you can't determine the full strength of the move in its current state. You can tell the strength of it is very bullish, but you need the second push up, because this area, not necessarily this push right here. This could still come up over here, come up over there further, but you need this second push up, because this is what's going to give you your lower high, higher high, or double top. Till you get this sort of second push up, and then you see the subsequent move down. That's really sort of where you're going to determine, okay, is this a short-term medium high for the dollar? Like, are we going to sort of see another leg up higher? Certainly, there was a lot of reasons for the market to be selling it from this area here. So really, we got to sort of see if you push past here, you're then looking at these previous highs where we sort of got it all marked out here, because we know the sellers are sitting here. See what the market does at this area. If they push it through, well, bang, it's game on for dollars for another push up. But you know what I mean, given the sort of price action in the last 2 weeks, I think certainly it's starting to buckle a little bit. Like this could have just been a big sort of liquidity grab kind of thing to sort of go for a next leg, but we will see. I mean, you can't really call it as of yet. We had a little sort of gap on the lower time frames, had a little bit of a gap down this morning on DXY. It's yet to sort of close that. So again, generally with DXY, when we're sort of seeing these gaps early, if they don't close straight away, you may sort of see it after a couple of hours. So you may be a bit of a sell down and then sort of push back up. So later in Asia, moving into Euro session, I think we're pretty light on the news. We've got a bit of China data sort of coming out, CPI for what it's worth over those guys. We've also got the trade balance coming out. These things could sort of play into it. Apart from that, I don't think we've got really too much. I've got consumer sentiment sort of late, sort of 1 o'clock and that sort of coming through. So yeah, we'll sort of see how this sort of plays out. But certainly I think that's sort of snapped out a large portion of the market. So we just got to see whether this wants to sort of break these highs here, or if we want to sort of cool off a little bit further. Aussie dollar, this is what I was saying, this got absolutely decimated. So we sort of see the drop off here. So you almost had a bit of a sort of head and shoulders pattern that sort of broke out through this line here. So I'll drag this one down here, because this will be a nice line for us to get above if we're going to sort of see any sort of I guess recovery. It's a long way off now, but just to sort of show the extent of this move, this is where we opened we closed last week. This is where we opened, came back up here, almost closed that gap, but then obviously closed gap, pushed back up. We got this little head and shoulders happening up over here. So if we sort of drag a little bit of a sort of measured move from this, it even sort of took this out as well. I mean, that's a measured move for head and shoulders, and it just sort of blew straight past that and really even came down. These are NFP lows, and as you can see, market sort of reacted quite strongly from this level here last week. We're starting to see the buyers sort of come in here again a little bit, so we can sort of see if it wants to sort of hold this 63 zone, then we may see a little bit more of a recovery, but certainly it took the brunt of that smackdown yesterday. So yeah, Aussie's really if we look at it on the daily, it's just a horrible candle. And this is what we were saying, that sort of like, these are the levels. We got above this horizontal for a brief second, but this smackdown here is just unbelievable. So yeah, Aussie's still certainly back in this kind of grind. Like it's a little bit of a sideways, but really we're still sort of seeing a bit of a downward move like this here. So You know, and I mean, these are the levels here that Aussie really needs to get above. If we look at the weekly, I think that's what's going to tell the story because this was the consolidation that we've been sort of watching. And really, if you can't close back up, you know, I'm saying 63.70 and change, you need to get above that to close to sort of keep this going because that is a very ugly looking liquidity grab candle as it comes out the bottom side. We've got a couple of levels of support, but you know, it's still a couple of 100 points to the downside here, which is, you know what I mean? It was a bit odd sort of price action this week with Aussie because, as I said, I mean, normally it's a risk asset, and you know, war is not conducive with okay, let's take on some risk. But it really sort of bucked the trend, and I think that was mainly due to obviously the US dollar sort of selling off more broadly over the whole market. But given the opportunity, the market really spoke quite loudly, and they sort of really hammered that down. So two Aussies can sort of reclaim this sort of 63.70 zone. I would say it's in danger of certainly, you know, retesting these lower levels at the excuse me, 62.80, and I mean a break of these wicks previously down here. Then on a weekly, this of course, and you're looking at a 6200 sort of touch up, but yeah, certainly not looking too particularly strong for itself at the moment. All right, so just flip on gold. Gold actually held up quite well, all things considered. It has started a great week. Came off those price levels that we were sort of saying. So we had the two price levels here. You can see this just clipping into these. This is the previous lows. If we, yeah, if we get back over here, so these are the previous lows from August, and it's come back up here and almost to like, you know, the cent, not even to the buck, but almost to the cent. It's just clipped that and then just sold back down here. But, you know, given the size of what DXY and US dollar broadly did, it really didn't sort of have too hard a sort of pullback. So, you know, and I mean, we're up around the 50% of this drop down. If we were looking long on these ones, you know, this was like just at the 23. Yeah, it bounced off the 23 pretty much again to the cent. So, yeah, I think that's sort of certainly, and obviously these sort of previous sort of like support levels here. So, yeah, look, gold's certainly still holding up there. So there's more upside chance in gold. With all these things, though, I mean, you're going to get what you call healthy pullbacks. You're going to get profit taking. This is obviously a bit sort of news related or data related as well. But again, I just don't think that data. It wasn't sort of like it came in above 4% or something, and that they really needed to sort of, okay, here's the market. The market's only like, I think I saw something where they're only 10% pricing a hike. So there's something else sort of going on behind the scenes with that, I would say, because, you know, obviously these sort of things, you know, CPI is probably a second tier. Well, it is a second tier bit of news. And, you know, it's what will help sort of shape the idea of what they're going to do, or the central banks are going to be doing with the rates. But you know, that data isn't sort of something that screams, okay, something needs to be done and done quickly. So I think it's more just sort of like, you know, again, it is the stuff with the war going on. It's those levels of sort of like, you know, of sort of oil prices and that sort of coming into play as well, which sort of affected things a little bit there. But gold for the meantime is a slight on the back foot, sort of coming into the session. If we sort of drag it across here, we can see we're starting to find some sort of like support midway here on the 23. 23s, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of them as a pullback, but you know, certainly it is showing that these pullbacks are very shallow with gold, which is conducive with more upside. But again, each time you pull back, till you take out that previous high, we're not going to sort of see that next leg on. Copper, copper still drifting. Bit of a boring trade here. I mean, it came back up here, retested this zone that we've got marked out, but again, sort of till it can reclaim this sort of previous sort of bottom edge of that triangle, we're looking at 340 as a possibility. As we got the alert set up on the downside here. If we can sort of find something to sort of pump up here, okay, then we got a little bit of a story going. But at the moment, it's just looking, yeah, Nothing really. Just basically a sideways trade. So nothing so much to report on copper at the moment. China again, it's still sort of churning sideways. This right shoulder is really sort of pushing on. So I mean, this was only just sort of like a little demo of what I was kind of looking for. So I wouldn't really sort of trust this and sort of call this okay. That's breaking out of that sort of area. But particularly if we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we've got 13 candles in this right shoulder here. Certainly, so we're on about six. I mean, depending where you want to call it, but we're on about sort of 16 to 18 candles, and that sort of in this. Sorry, in that left shoulder previously, about sort of 18 candles in this right shoulder here. So till we get down under this line here, this support zone where we know that the buyers have been, and even this last reaction has been quite solid, and you've seen that follow through. You're not going to sort of see any sort of further downside. It's just churning sideways, not really doing anything or nothing of note. But as I said, we've got some China data coming out today. We've got the CPI, I think there's the PPI, and also the trade balance. So I think China's sort of like at the moment, they're trying to sort of bolster up um, their data. Like obviously we had that sort of China news about sort of more stimulus earlier in the week, and markets liked that and they reacted to that. So I think they want to see the follow through with that kind of stuff. But I think they're certainly trying to sort of compensate for their housing market with their manufacturing side of things at the moment. So trade balance could be quite interesting. Maybe it's too early to sort of tell sort of what they're doing or to see some sort of reaction with it. But that's something that I'm sort of certainly going to be keeping an eye on. All right, cool. Just a short one today, just that follow up, and that's pretty much it for me.